Three.
Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. This is Dr. Mike Ronsisvalle. Super glad that you're with us today, and we've got a couple weeks until we transition to our new format, but I did want to just jump on with you and kind of encourage you guys a little bit with some tips for wellness, as I do always on Wednesdays, and I have been doing that for a long time now. So again, always my pleasure to be here. Always my pleasure to kind of speak into your life and appreciate all the investment of the Live Well coaching community and all the feedback that you guys are giving us about the platform. Just super fun. Really a privilege to be able to do it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how rude people are. That's not a great title, I know, right? So the actual title is Restoring Ourselves in a Rude World. I think that's really fancy, when the truth of the matter is, man, people are just messed up. Like really messed up. And I'm a few decades old now. I don't like to talk about that. I don't like to think about how old I am. But I've never lived in a world where people were as consistently, I don't know, just ready to pounce. It seems at any moment people are ready to comment, tell you what they think, tell you why you're wrong, just really communicate in ways that I don't think even a few years ago people would have been willing to communicate the way they communicate now. It would have felt bad. It would have felt wrong. But for some reason, somehow, and I do have some ideas about this, we just are in a different place. People are quick to criticize. They are quick to come back. They are quick to be snarky. And that doesn't matter whether you're at Target checking out with some groceries. It doesn't matter if you're in traffic. Doesn't matter if you're at a Broadway play. I mean, this is no respecter of persons. Northeast, Southeast, out West. This is not a cultural thing for, a regional process that goes on in the U.S. or somewhere in the world. This is everywhere. And I think the research shows and demonstrates that it's not just American. It's not an American problem. It's a Western culture problem. This is happening in Europe, in Australia. It's documented over and over and over again. So, we hear it all the time, like, oh, the strategies, don't take it personally, just brush it off and grow thicker skin, like figure out how to deal with this. But at the end of the day, we've got to have something more than just the platitudes to figure out how to respond to how difficult people can be in this culture. So, I had all kinds of examples I was going to give you of how rude people can be, but I think, pick one, right? So I love driving. I love the driving example because it's all of us. It's, think about what it's like to get in a car and you're speeding in this vehicle 85 miles an hour down the road, and the decisions that people make when you're driving, like you're trying to stay alive, basically. That's kind of the goal. When you're driving, is I'm in this machine, it could blow up if I hit something. I've got to my main goal is to stay alive. And people oh my gosh, man, what are they doing? So I trailer a boat down to the Keys every year, at least once a year. I'll get my boat behind our big SUV, and man, we hit the road. And we go spear diving and fishing. It's one of the most fun trips we do all year. My kids and I, my wife, we look forward to this every year. And the adventure starts the minute we pull out of our driveway. Why? Because we're pulling this 4,500-pound boat behind us. And it is amazing to me how rude people can be even trying to drive down to the Keys with the boat. I mean, when I see someone with a trailer, I'm like, okay, more than if this guy doesn't have like a company name on this trailer, I'm assuming he doesn't drive a trailer or she doesn't drive a trailer very often. So I'm gonna get out of the way. I'm gonna make room because it's not easy, right? Man, I wish I could set up a GoPro so that you guys could see the drama of driving a boat on the interstate down through Miami. I mean, people are ruthless, man. I don't even know the word rude covers it. It gets really, really interesting. Let's put it that way. And I shake my head half the time. I'm like, man, if they knew that I drove this like once a year, they probably wouldn't. They wouldn't want to cut me off like that if they knew that. But obviously, we're good. We make it through. But I use that as just an example of how pervasive this is, and it doesn't matter whether it's social media, like I said, Target, like the snarkiness of our world. It's not just you. It's not just that you think things are gotten worse. There's some documented evidence that show that it does get worse. It has gotten worse. So the research tells us something very important about rudeness. Even small and fleeting, if it's just like this minor thing, it leaves a mark on us, and it leaves a mark on our productivity, on our minds, and even our safety. And I want to kind of give you some of the research to back that up. There was a 2025 Pew Research study, so this is brand new, that found that 47% of Americans believe people have become ruder since the pandemic. It's not just you. It's not just me. Half of America believes, man, this has gotten worse. And so that tells us this isn't in our head. This is our collective experience. And if you look at the pervasive nature of it, you're going to find that work is one of the biggest contexts where rudeness has taken it's taken its toll, right? So in the workplace, a researcher from the University of Florida, go Gators, found that single acts of rudeness can damage focus. They can damage safety. If you think about like a warehouse worker or something, especially in fields like healthcare. So think about like the nurse who's distracted after being snapped at, making a mistake during a medication administration. So you take that sort of example, and rudeness can become life-threatening because it actually does impact us. And I know we talked last week even about like, how a nurse finally just got fed up with it, and she said, I'm done. And nurses all over the country are done. Like they're quitting in droves because they just can't handle how difficult and rude patients are. So what's more disturbing is the rudeness is contagious. So witnessing someone being rude is more likely to basically produce rudeness in someone. Does that make sense? So it spreads like an emotional virus. One nasty encounter can ripple through your entire day and onto others. So when someone's snarky with you, the research shows that you're then much more likely to be snarky with other people. So you're not too sensitive, you're not weak, you're human. And the truth is that when people start to treat us in these very rude ways, it has an impact. So I think the question is like, why? Like, why does it affect us so deeply? Because I think on some level we want to be able to say, like I started with, just move on, just toughen up, like grow some thick skin and get through this. Don't be a weenie, don't be a small person. Let it roll off your back, like water off a duck's back. But honestly, rude behavior strikes at something very primitive for us. It throws off our social equilibrium. And when we're ignored or belittled or accused, it triggers a mini fight or flight response, like this little micro fight or flight response. And the brain goes on a high state of alert. Your focus narrows. Our default mode network, that part of the brain that's involved in reflection and self-processing, it kicks into overdrive. And we ruminate and we obsess and we replay the moment and we try to understand it and we try to fix it, even though it's already over. And so think about this. A lot of times you talk about being rude and you talk about how rude people are. The feedback you're going to get from your loved ones, from people that care about you, is just move on. Just let it roll off your back. How can we let it roll off our back if it's essentially kind of creating this ruminating process in our brain where ultimately we want to know how we could respond or how we should have responded, and we get stuck on it? There's a justice to it. Like, this isn't right. We perceive that threat, and then now we're stuck in that amygdala-driven state that I talk about almost every Wednesday, right? That fear threat mode of your brain. So yeah, move on. But it's totally unrealistic to think that you can just move on without purposely figuring out how to calm your brain and your body down and how to react differently in the moment to rudeness. And in many ways, it's going to be just shifting how we interpret the meaning of rudeness. Why are people being rude, and how are we going to respond to it? I think of Seinfeld. I'm showing my age now. For those of you that don't know, there was a show about nothing in the late 90s, early 2000s called Seinfeld, and it was freaking awesome. It was great. They could have a 30-minute sitcom about literally waiting in a waiting room of a restaurant, trying to get seated. So there's a show on Seinfeld where George Costanza is trying to respond to how he could, if someone was rude to him, and he just was passive and he didn't say the right thing. And he spent the whole show figuring out, like, what should I have said? And I think his joke, it's not going to be funny now, but I'm going to tell you, his joke was, I should have said, the jerk store called and they said they're short on jerks and you need to go, something like that. So he had just created all this narrative and mental energy to try to respond. I should have said this. I should have done this. And the reason that identified with me, and the reason that it worked for that Seinfeld episode, is because it's the universal human experience. When that kind of thing happens to us, our brain does go into this mode where we want to fix it, and we want to be able to respond in a way that feels like we can have some justice, and we can feel safe, right? But what if, instead of trying to toughen up and trying to just move on, what if we tried to actually address this and tried to actually heal it? And what if the real antidote to rudeness isn't just feeling cold and callous and removed, but actually open? So I want to share with you what the psychologists call the solace of openness. And these are 3 forms of responses to rudeness that I stumbled upon during a particularly kind of rough week with people being rude. So let's talk about first the solace of open-minded people. The solace of open-minded people. So psychologically, we know that empathy matters. We know that listening matters. We know that curiosity matters. Neuroscience has shown that openness to experiences, traits like curiosity, non-judgment, cognitive flexibility, they help buffer us against stress. They help buffer us against the effects of just narrow, rigid thinking. And open-minded people restore our mental elasticity, right? They pull us out of that spiral and they soften us instead of hardening us, right? So ask yourself, who are the open-minded people in your life? And more importantly, can you be that for someone else? So the solace of openness, when I say solace, the idea is like this peaceful place, like the solace of open-minded people. So who do you know that you can get around that can just look at rudeness with levity, that can look at rudeness with perspective, that can look at rudeness with maturity, that can look at rudeness with depth. You do not need to process how messed up our culture is with people that will join you in the 5-alarm fire in your brain and be like, oh, people suck. Because that's basically what you get a lot. Or if you start to talk about this and you try to process it with people, ultimately, that's what you're going to get is people actually do suck. And the more you hear that, obviously, the worse it gets. Misery loves company. So it's finding people that will just be open-minded and they'll start to just in a curious, non-judgmental way, try to understand why. Why are people acting like this? What context can we assign to their lives? How can we put their behavior in context? So the person that cuts me off when I'm pulling that boat down to the Keys, maybe they're a jerk, perhaps, probably. But in addition to that, they're probably having a bad day, or they're probably stressed out, or they're probably fighting with their spouse, or there's got to be a context that is driving the behavior. Behavior happens in context, right? Like we're humans. We're not animals that are just driven by instinct. We're driven by sort of these cognitive structures that interpret our world for us. And there's moments where that kind of empathy and getting around people that can openly discuss the context of rudeness with you really helps. So number one, we've got the solace of open-minded people. Secondly, we've got the solace of open places, right? So think about me going down to the Keys. It's a tough drive. It's just a tough drive anyways when you're pulling this big old boat and like your hands are on the wheels. It's hard, right? Feels like I drove to Colorado and back, right? And it's a 4-hour trip. But you know what happens? Something really cool happens every time I do this. We get to the Keys, we launch that boat. I'm up here. It's like, it's intense. I'm like, get the boat in the water, get to the Airbnb, get the boat on the dock behind the Airbnb. There's just a lot that has to happen, right? Been dealing with all these people. I've been dealing with their issues. Then there's a little pattern. My oldest son gets in the truck. He backs that boat down into the water. My younger son and I jump on the boat. We pull that boat off the trailer and we get out into the water, the open water. Usually it's about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. It's not dark yet, but man, the sun's not out. It's just super peaceful usually. And as you're getting into the evening in the Keys, like it's still, right? And there's something about just being in that open water, and we can be cruising at like 30 miles an hour in that boat, and the wind's in my hair and the sun's in my face. And man, it does something to just like calm me down. And so dealing with people for 4 or 6 hours on the road, they're cutting you off, they're blowing their horn, it's just the ugliness of people the whole trip. But man, if I can get on the water, there is a significant shift in my response. The situation is still the same. It is what it is. I just spent 6 hours fighting people, right? But almost instantly, man, it takes maybe 2 minutes. I can just feel this weight lift. And there's a calm that I get in that environment. And so I say that to say there is peace, there's solace in open places. And my question to you is, where is your open place? It can be your back porch. It can be your balcony. It can be a park bench. It can be a window at your house. It can be the beach. It's another one for me. Just walking at the beach at dusk. My gosh, man. There's no other place like it in the world. And that can become your reset space. So if you deal with people at work that are just rude, and your team does not know how to treat people, and your leader does not know how to lead, and it's a constant barrage of rudeness and snarkiness, and you live your life in that, and it feels intense and it feels heavy, and you're tired and you're fatigued, understand the solace of openness and open places. Like, where can you go consistently to kind of calm your brain and your body down? It's a biological reality that the rudeness is impacting you. Where can you go to calm your brain and your body down? That's the solace of your open place. And we all need that, especially if you're living in it. If you're living in this consistently, like if your marriage has become rude, if your family has become rude, if your workplace has become rude, in other words, where you live and work you're paying the bill for whatever's happened in our culture. You got to work on this. You've got to work on intentionally getting yourself in calm places, in these open places that will help you calm your brain and your body down. And then finally, we've got the solace of open time. And this is maybe the hardest part, right? This is giving ourselves unstructured, unplugged, open time. Time without checking your phone, without multitasking, without numbing yourself with screens or Netflix or the internet or Prime Video or whatever. So when we're constantly reacting to text and headlines and all the noise, we don't allow our nervous system to downshift. But when we carve out slow, quiet time, we create mental spaciousness. Does that make sense? It's like this place, this solace of open time. So think about me on the ocean at 7:00 down in the Keys. I'm not rushed. I'm not, sometimes we'll stop the boat. If it's clear, we'll look and say, let's check this spot out and see, are there any fish there? We see any lobster down there? And when we just linger, and when I let myself just sort of like rest in that time, it becomes sort of a way that I'm purposely rewiring the stress response in my brain. Now, I've talked about open people, like finding open people and being an open person, right? I've talked about finding just open places, like where can you go? But this last one is probably the hardest, because I'm saying carving out the time. And if we can get this pattern in place, then what we do is we can have like open time in our lazy boy at our house. We can have open time, at lunch in our office, because it's essentially just carving out time to calm your brain and your body down. So what would it look like to give yourself time every day where you're just completely unplugged? And remember, a lot of you are looking at social media. A lot of the rudeness is on social media. Like, get away from it. Stop looking. Dedicate yourself to say, okay, I'll check once a week, or I'll check once a day at lunch, but then, I'm done. So that intentionality of open time to just rest and respond is huge. And so I hope you can kind of see the pattern that I'm building. It's not like you just get over rude people, like just grow thick skin. It doesn't work, right? So our goal is to say, okay, step one, I need to recognize that when I confront this snarkiness of this world, that it is putting my brain in a different state. If you have any trauma at all in your life, in your history, it is going to trigger your trauma, right? You're going to feel at risk. So your frontal lobe is starting to shut down, your amygdala is turned on. And to just grow thick skin when you're in a state of high alert is not realistic. So I am saying that you need to, block the snarkiness. You need to not attend to it. All those things, right? That is true. Like, you need to let it roll off your back. But there's a path, and the path is not to just be in denial about what's happened. The path is to say, okay, first and foremost, I need to recognize this does impact me, and it's put my brain in a state of high alert. I'm now in fight or flight mode. Then you need to say, okay, can I look for the solace of open people? Can I surround myself with people that will just give me perspective, and they'll give me, the liberty to kind of think through the context. Why are people acting the way they're acting? Why is my boss so rude? Well, he's stressed and he's overwhelmed. And just the flexibility of being able to see people differently and to be able to recognize that they have a context and that they're dealing with their own stuff. And they're probably responding to the contagious virus of rudeness on their own. People are being rude to them, right? They're in fight or flight mode. So that's why they're being so rude to you. Who are the people that have this, like, the solace of openness to say, okay, I'll help you look at this differently and see your world differently. Then secondly, how am I going to calm my brain down? It's going to be the solace of open places. Metaphorically, how are you going to get on a boat, get out in the ocean, feel the warm sun on your face and the wind in your hair? Where are your open places? And then finally, time, the solace, the peace of open time, like carving out time specifically to say, okay, I'm going to do the hard work of putting myself in situations where I consistently can calm my brain and my body down. And guys, it works. It absolutely works. So there's something radical about the idea of addressing the rudeness. There's something radical about the idea of saying, okay, I'm going to do counterculture. I'm not going to respond to other people the way they respond to me. I'm not going to be a part of the problem. I'm going to be a part of the solution. And in a rude world, restoring yourself actually becomes an act of resistance. When we don't absorb the cruelty, we refuse to pass on the rudeness. So think about that. If this is contagious, and if rude people are being rude because they've been exposed to rudeness, then if we address these issues and we're willing to do the hard work of calming our brain down and finding the places and the people and the time to do it, then we're now a part of the solution. We're not passing on the rudeness. And there's something about us that feels like, well, I'm gonna respond because I deserve to be able to respond, and people are rude and I'm gonna stand up for myself. All of that's true. I get it. I get the boundaries. We did a whole challenge on boundaries. I'm telling you, be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. Respond differently to people that are being rude to you, and take some solace in the idea that, okay, I'm not transmitting that virus. I'm not a part of the problem. And when you heal instead of harden, you break the cycle, right? All right. This was a fun one, right? I know it's hard to think about how to respond to people sometimes, and it's hard to think about how to respond, especially to people that are being snarky. But I really want to encourage you that you can do this. And what would happen? What would happen if everybody took this encouragement and took responsibility to calm their brain down? What we would actually find is kindness. What we would find is we as a culture have reclaimed kindness. And I do not think that we would ever regret that. I don't think you'll ever regret it doesn't matter what's happening outside of you. It doesn't matter whether anybody catches the kindness from you instead of the rudeness. your life is going to be improved. It's going to help you get healthy and stay healthy and live well. All right, guys. Great to be with you today on Wellness Wednesday. Like I said, I think we've got a couple weeks left, maybe this week and next week, and then we're going to really hit it hard with our 5. We're going to do 5 drips, right? Every day during the week, you're going to have new content instead of just 3 days a week. So we're super excited about that. We will look forward to it. Until